The libs are taking out the knives for Elon Musk. Over the past 24 hours, the billionaire has been hit by multiple negative stories, including the delisting of his company Tesla from the S&P 500's ESG list and accusations that he sexually harassed a flight attendant on a private jet in 2016. Musk is denying the reports, claiming the attacks are politically motivated because, wouldn't that seem pretty obvious? We'll take a look at the accusations against Elon and his response in tonight's Hold the Line. Welcome to Hold the Line. I'm Buck Sexton. It's not surprising at all. In fact, Elon isn't surprised by it, I'm sure, because he said in recent weeks, they're going to come after me. They're going to try to destroy me. Why? Elon Musk is the richest man in the world, and he wants to buy Twitter and turn it into a free speech platform. You have to remember that free speech to libs is like water to the Wicked Witch of the West. They melt. They can't handle free speech. They hate the very idea of free speech. They need to control speech, or else their little feelings get hurt. And so since Elon is now a problem for them in this regard, they've done what they always do, try to destroy him through whatever means they can fathom. Business Insider, another lib publication that the world would be better off without, had a headline: a SpaceX flight attendant said Elon Musk exposed himself and propositioned her for sex. The documents show the company paid $250,000 for her silence. Now, this is so far reported as someone who knows the person. A friend of the supposed victim of Elon's sexual harassment told this to Business Insider, and Elon Musk is saying, nah, not even a little bit, not even close to true. He responded, he said, for the record, those wild accusations are utterly untrue, but I have a challenge to this liar who claims their friend saw me exposed. Describe just one thing, anything at all, scars, tattoos, that isn't known by the public. She won't be able to do so because it never happened. Elon straight up saying she's a liar. This woman is lying. This whole thing is a fabrication. And for many of us, this is not surprising. They're trying to Kavanaugh Elon Musk right now. By way of quick review, you'll recall back in the 2018 period, or was it 2019 now? I can't remember. Justice Kavanaugh was up for a Supreme Court confirmation, and a number of women came forward to accuse him of increasingly hard to believe, as in they were obviously fake, allegations of sexual misconduct. Christine Blasio Ford was the first, and then there were a couple of others who came forward trying to smear a man who would then become a Supreme Court justice because the left will do anything for power. They're Kavanaughing Elon Musk right now. They're pulling out all the stops and trying to convince people that somehow Elon Musk is unworthy of being able to buy Twitter because he's a sexual harasser. The guy's been in public life and business for over 30 years, never had any allegation like this against him whatsoever. And now, just when he's about to purchase Twitter, this comes out? Yeah. Very coincidental, isn't it? But the left is ruthless, absolutely ruthless. They think that by using tactics that are dishonest and destructive, they're actually being honorable. That's because they have no sense of what honor is. They don't care. They just want what they want. And then there's the ESG score, right? ESG is whether a company is, social justice aware, essentially. Here's a Bloomberg headline: Tesla has, Elon's company, lost its spot on the S&P ESG index due to concerns over crashes and working conditions. So, is this a company that is responsive to environment and social and governance issues, right? This is now how you get your social credit score, officially speaking, from the S&P. I mean, this is a terrifying development when you think about how left-wing and woke the institutions in America are right now when it comes to grading on these matters. Elon responded to the S&P 500 ESG listing by saying, Exxon is rated top 10 best in the world for environment, social, and governance by S&P 500 ESG. While Tesla didn't make the list, ESG is a scam. It has been weaponized by phony social justice warriors. Yeah, it has. He's right. That's what's going on here. Let's understand that the Democrat Party claims that climate change is an existential risk. They'll tell you that climate change, if we don't do a lot right away, and it's imminent, it's coming, if we don't do a lot right now to address climate change, human beings as a species are at risk of extinction. This is their actual belief system. I mean, I'm not exaggerating this. They say existential threat all the time. Biden does, Obama has said it when he was in office. This is Democrat Party dogma. Elon Musk is doing more as an individual than any other person you could argue on the planet to combat climate change. Not that I think that this is a necessary battle to wage, but by creating the most successful electric car company and with all of its attendant technologies that are clean energy technologies on the planet, Elon Musk is doing more to battle climate change than any lib in existence. And yet, they still want to destroy him. And they want to destroy him because he is a threat to their social media platform control of speech and with it, perception in America. It's a threat to their power. So that matters to them more. That they are in charge, that they are in power is more important to Democrats than saving the planet based on the actions you can see, by their own admission, based on the actions you can see here for how they're going after Elon Musk. Now, Elon predicted this. It's not surprising at all when you see, what he actually thinks about this, because he knew they were going to come for him. And this is what he tweeted out. The attacks against me should be viewed through a political lens. This is their standard despicable playbook, but nothing will deter me from fighting for a good future and your right to free speech. That's why they hate him, because he wants free speech for people, because he wants to see an internet essentially that is increasingly moving toward the free exchange of ideas instead of one political ideology, authoritarian leftist politic, which is what we have, social justice obsessed left-wing lunacy, determining what is acceptable speech, what is hate speech, what has to be kicked off the internet on a regular basis. By the way, he also said that the accusations are utterly untrue against him. This is another tweet. And he said, finally, we get to use elongate as a scandal name. It's kind of perfect. Look, it's important for everyone to understand that this is, if you stand against the left, what you are up against. This is what they will do to you. They will do everything in their power to destroy you because they are vicious authoritarians. Right now, let's talk about protecting your home. If you own a home or property, here's 2 reasons you never want to become the victim of home title fraud. Number 1, when a cyber criminal worms his way onto your home's title, he'll take out loan after loan using your home's equity, then he'll vanish. Number 2, you could be a victim of home title fraud and not even know it for months. No agency notifies you or asks you if you sold your home or added someone to the title. You'll find out when the collection calls start for loans you never took out. Nobody knows more about how to help stop this crime than Home Title Lock, America's trusted leader. Here's what I urge you to do. Go to HometitleLock.com and read the testimonials from retired FBI agents and others. Then register your address to see if you're already a victim. When you protect your home, tell them Buck Sexton sent you for 30 free days of protection. That's HometitleLock.com. Again, HometitleLock.com. We'll be right back with more. Hold the line. Elon Musk is firing back at critics today, claiming that their attacks are untrue and motivated by politics. Responding to a tweet about the latest Russiagate news from Congressman Jim Jordan earlier today, Musk said, quote, most people still don't know that a Clinton campaign lawyer using campaign funds created an elaborate hoax about Trump and Russia. Makes you wonder what else is fake. Yeah, it does, doesn't it? For more on this, we turn to host of the First Watch podcast, Steve Krakauer. Crack, good to see you, sir.
Hey, Buck, how you doing?
I'm all right. So, first of all, I got to say, this latest situation here, this latest revelation, I should say, coming out of this Sussman trial, right? The lawyer that was working on behalf of Hillary. You had Robbie Mook, who was Hillary's right-hand man for the campaign, admit that Hillary said, go and spread this Alpha Bank Russia collusion Trump lie. And then they just went and they took this out there and they ran with it. I mean, this was straight from Hillary.
Yeah, it certainly looks that way. No, the Sussman trial is unsurprisingly not getting a ton of, let's say, Acela media attention right now. And I think it really should. I actually just saw right before I started talking to you, a clip circulating of Robbie Mook talking to CNN's Jake Tapper in 2016 before the convention. And essentially saying that this was Russian disinformation. No, this is being reported in the press. We're seeing from experts. Well, as we know now, that was spun by the Hillary campaign to the press, their own experts, and as we know now from today, spun directly from Hillary Clinton, as Robbie Mook has said under oath. I think that a press that cared about introspection and setting the record straight after getting it wrong 4 or 5 years ago would be paying attention to this. I just don't think we have that right now, and so we're probably going to get more silence from it from the people that spun this exact tale that we now see was a total propaganda.
What do you make of what feels like a day-by-day red pilling in slow motion of Elon's tweets here? You know, he recently said he used to be a Democrat because they were essentially the nice guy party, but it switched and now they're mean. So he's going to support Republicans. You know, he's now weighing in after Jim Jordan essentially says the Russia collusion thing was a big Hillary lie, which it was. Elon feels like a force to be reckoned with these days in terms of moving the conversation to the right.
It's fascinating. I think you look at Elon Musk as someone, just look at it in a vacuum. What has Elon Musk done for the country, done for the world? People that care very deeply about climate change, for example, might maybe point to Elon Musk as one of the entrepreneurs who's done the most for the climate because of what he's done with electric cars or what he's done with the Boring Company to do with less traffic congestion. But then, of course, he cares about free speech. And now apparently free speech equates to red pilling and equates to the GOP. It's unbelievable to see. And it reminds me of where I think of this current iteration of the Elon Musking of the story started, which was last week. He announced that if he was running Twitter, which he probably will come October, he would have Donald Trump go back onto the platform. This is like the big question, right? Will you allow Donald Trump, who was permanently banned in January of last year, back onto Twitter? He says he would. And I found most interesting, his buddy, Jack Dorsey, who used to run Twitter, agreed with that, says it was an overreach by Twitter to take him off. And now this has just been this cascading effect of now we're making Elon Musk into some Republican, and then it's like chicken or egg. Now he's saying, okay, well, you say I'm a Republican, I'm going to vote Republican next time. So yeah, no, it's fascinating, and it's crazy to me that the media that leans left should care about free speech now finds a true First Amendment free speech advocate as someone who's right wing. It just doesn't make any sense.
And what do you make of it feels in many ways all too predictable, sudden revelation, which is actually just word of mouth hearsay from someone who says they know someone that Elon propositioned 6 years ago and paid a nuisance settlement to get rid of it? I mean, he said in tweets a few days ago, they're coming after me, guys, just so you know, wait for it.
Yeah, well, we know now that he knew that the story was coming. He was given a day or two to try to respond before it was published. Yeah, Business Insider puts this out, and I will say I think Business Insider's journalistic credibility has taken many shots over the last couple of years. I look at the Dave Portnoy story as one in particular, but I will say it was published by, or the author of it was Rich McHugh, who's done some great work that I think is very respectable in the Me Too space and work that I've done. He was actually one of the people that put Tara Reid out there, one of Joe Biden's accusers of sexual misconduct. So I think, though, what's interesting about it is kind of what you point out, sourcing on it. I mean, you could not get a more thinly sourced story than no firsthand account. The only secondhand account is a friend of the accuser. They couldn't even get to the accuser to sort of judge about the credibility of this person. No, it was a rushed effort, to put it very generously, a rushed effort to put this story out there. Elon, as you say, is already responding on Twitter. I don't think the story is over, and I also don't think it hit very hard. I don't think it landed because I think even people who want to maybe bury Elon Musk see that this is all just kind of innuendo and not really going to attach very strongly to him.
Switching gears here, the Disinformation Board, Steve, the former head Nina Jankowicz of the Disinformation Board is claiming that it was a victim of disinformation. Watch this.
I would say that the Disinformation Governance Board was the victim of disinformation. So the difference between dis and misinformation is disinformation is false information spread with malign intent. And clearly there was a malign intent on some actors in the media and in politics who just really stood up to the formation of this board because it would be confronting disinformation.
I mean, what do you think?
I would say that Nina was a victim of information. I think that was the real problem here. You know, the board gets announced. which even, I would say, some of the people who may support a disinformation governance board within the Department of Homeland Security, which I would say is red flags all over the place. But even if people would support that, then you get to see this Nina Jankowicz as the head of it. And we start to learn a little bit about her, start to see some of her tweets and some of her past comments, and see that she is a deeply unserious, just ridiculous person that's leading this thing. And no misinformation, no disinformation, just literal facts, just literal her own words put out there is what torpedoed this entire thing. So yeah, it's pretty rich, and it really tells you, I think, a lot about what this disinformation governance board was going to be all about. If she is going to call what happened to her as being a victim of disinformation, when in reality it was people just sharing and sort of laughing at how ridiculous she has been over the past several years, in addition to pouring cold water on what we now know were kind of misinformation efforts like the Hunter Biden laptop story.
Soviet Mary Poppins, as I call her, would claim that you, sir, are endangering national security by being critical of her efforts. Watch this one.
Frankly, this childish behavior is endangering our national security now. This board was set up to counter real disinformation that makes Americans less safe. Things about false information related to disasters, border security, our elections, and other critical infrastructure like pipelines and banks. So those who stand in opposition to the board, which, as the secretary said, was just an internal coordinating mechanism, something to make sure that we were efficient and using best practices, are standing in the way of our national security.
Standing in the way, Steve.
Bug, I hadn't seen that one. You've spent some time in the infrastructure of the government. I have not, but this is someone who has never been involved in government in her life until like 2 weeks ago. I mean, like a couple Scaramucci's ago, and now all of a sudden she's talking like a government bureaucrat, like she's going to help national security. What is it? Did it just go to her head in the span of a couple weeks? I mean, this is unbelievable.
Coordination, best practices, just all you have to do if you work in the federal government, Steve, is you say that enough times and you expect people to believe you know what the hell you're talking about. But turns out, no, not so much. So adios to Soviet Mary Poppins. And Steve, good of you to join us, man. Good to see you.
Hey, Buck, anytime. Thanks.
If you thought you'd seen the last of New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio, think again. This morning, de Blasio announced his bid for Congress in New York City's 10th district. We have more on that with Mr. New York himself, iHeartRadio talk show host Mark Simone, when we come back. First, I want to talk to you about protecting your online data. A lot of companies promise your privacy is guaranteed, but we know that's not true. That's why you need a new privacy and cybersecurity application tool called Secure. It's spelled S-E-K-U-R. Secure is using proprietary encryption and offering secure instant messaging and email. With Secure, all of your communications based on servers and data centers hosted in Switzerland without using any of the big tech platforms. Privacy is a big issue. Secure will never mine your data, never ask for your phone number. You can send emails, communications without ever worrying about being spied on. Secure is your solution to stop the constant theft of your digital identity. It costs only $5 for the Messenger, only $10 for the Messenger and email combination package. Go to secure.com and take back your privacy today. That's SEKUR.com and use promo code BUCK for 25% off. We'll be right back with more. Hold the line. He's back, and we are not excited about it. Earlier today, former New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio announced that he is running for Congress, seeking the Democratic nomination for the newly drawn 10th Congressional District, which Representative Jerry Nadler currently occupies. Here was this morning on MSNBC, the announcement. Watch.
I'm very proud of having led this city out of the worst of the COVID crisis. I'm ready right now to serve and address the issues that are so deep in communities in Brooklyn and Manhattan. And I just wanted to come here, a place that I cherish, and with you, who've been such good friends, to tell you this is the next step, and I want to serve the people of the community that is my home and that I love.
I live in New York City. De Blasio left it in shambles, and it's amazing that he could expect to make a difference in Congress that was positive in any way. But let's talk to somebody who's really drilled down into all of this and more about the Empire State. Host on 710 WOR New York at iHeartRadio, Mark Simone. Mr. Mark, good to see you, sir.
Great to see you. Love being on a show where you don't have to wear a tie. It's great.
Yeah, exactly. If the host doesn't wear a tie, you don't have to wear it. You know what I mean? This is the way we do it.
Yeah.
Mark, I got to tell you, I saw this morning. I don't know if there's a politician who gets under my skin, who annoys me more than Bill de Blasio as a lifelong born and raised New Yorker. You are Mr. New York. What do you think about this? Is this guy serious?
Oh, absolutely. Hey, I'm not that bothered by it. You know, this guy's horrible, but I'll take him over Jerry Nadler. I'll take him over a lot of these people. The good news with him, let's go over his mayoralty. Crime wave out of control, created a homeless crisis. He and his wife lost $1 billion in some crazy charity they set up for the homeless. There's still $400,000 in expenses the city's trying to collect back from him. But the good news is he never showed up for work. He was a no-show. He doesn't come to work. So if we're going to have a Democrat, let's have this guy who'll never show up. It'll be perfect.
De Blasio tweeted about this. He tweeted out, "Wherever I go, people ask, and things get better. I say from my heart, yes, but we have to make them better. In our neighborhoods and our nation, the way to save democracy is to be part of it. So I declare my candidacy in New York 10. I ask you to join us." I mean, it's such pablum and so absurd, but to your point, the way that we can make things better is to not give any power to people like Bill de Blasio, whether this is New York or anywhere else in the country.
Well, that's true. Hey, and also you got to look at Mika and Joe there, who let him ramble like that and don't confront him with his horrible, disastrous record as mayor. They didn't even bring it up. It just shows you what a ridiculous program that is. You know, de Blasio used to work for Hillary Clinton, so he's got that same gene, that no shame. You can't embarrass them. They could lose 100 races and they'll run again. Every time she runs for president, she first was wiped out by a rookie, Barack Obama. Second time, a total beginner, amateur knocked her out. And she'll run again. And it's the same thing with de Blasio. He doesn't care.
What do you think of the new the appointed court redistricting map for the state of New York? By the way, on the congressional side, we're heading to this super important midterm election. My understanding is that the new, I forget what the term is, it's like the super master or something from the court, right?
Special master.
Special master.
Yeah.
Thank you. The special master from the court drawing up the districts. It looks like this actually means that there could be some additional red congressional districts, depending on how this midterm goes. How are you seeing it?
Yeah, it's not a whole lot, though. The way the Democrats drew it was so ludicrous that the judge had to throw it out. Special master, it's not great. I think like the assembly races here for the state, I think 38 districts favor the Democrats, 15 favor the Republicans, and 10 could be a toss-up. So it's still a huge advantage for Democrats. And New York City, it's better. It's not perfect, but at least it's better than it was.
Now, what do you see in the governor's race, by the way? I mean, we've got a Republican primary that's still underway to be decided, I assume, next month. How are you seeing that shape up? And what kind of shape do you think Kathy Hochul's in to win re-election?
She's in horrible shape. Her numbers are plunging. She's a disaster as governor. It's all slogans and gimmicks. You get something like the horrible Buffalo tragedy, and she just spews a million slogans and then goes back to sleep. It's kind of like what de Blasio did. And you're going to have a big red wave, big red turnout for the congressional races. That hurts hurts a Democrat running for governor. She's going to have a tough time. You got really strong Republican candidates who will out-debate her in both debates. So she's got a problem.
And in terms of the Republicans, you've got right now. Is it essentially a three-way race? Would you say, or is it really between two? How would you gauge it?
Well, Lee Zeldin is the party's choice, the donor's choice. Certainly a very competent guy. But Rob Astorino would be a great governor. He has been studying Albany and that governor's mansion for years. He's been all over the state. He is great. And Andrew Giuliani, a little too young, a little too new, but boy, has he been getting good on the campaign trail. He would be fine. He'd actually be the perfect lieutenant governor. But you can't go wrong with any of these candidates.
That's good to hear. Let's go in the opposite direction on the incompetence side of things for a second here. Back here in NYC, your hometown, my hometown, Mayor Adams, the new mayor, has some of his recent remarks on crime under scrutiny. Here he is saying, well, let's just listen to what he says.
Guns, guns, guns. And we clearly felt our plan that we would be out of this peak of violence by now, but the flow is endless. These guns are endless on our street. I've never witnessed anything like this before in my professional career.
I mean, first of all, wasn't he a police captain back in the 1980s and into the 90s when the violence rate here? I mean, there were like 2,200 murders in New York in 1991. What do you make? Guns, guns, guns. It's not like there's a whole lot more guns now than there were 5 or 10 years ago. What is he talking about?
Well, it's just the easy thing to say. Same thing with Kathy Hochul, Joe Biden. Just do the gimmicks. More gun laws. We got 427 gun laws. 433. That'll make a difference. It's about criminals. Lock up the criminals. Get the criminals off the street. There's already, I think, 800,000 illegal guns floating around New York. So no matter what you do, these guns are still there. You know, cities all around the world are hiring our great geniuses like Ray Kelly, police commissioner, Bill Bratton, even Rudy Giuliani, to come show them how to get rid of crime. This mayor has never thought to even call them and ask them to come to lunch and give them some advice. It's crazy not to do that.
Do you think there is a moment of reckoning that Adams may hit at some point here? What is it, Mark? Is it going to be the polls? Is it going to be, I know that, he's not up obviously in this midterm, but if Democrats just get annihilated and it turns out that in major cities, crime was a big drag for the party, what gets them to wake up? I mean, that's really what I want to know, because I did hope, and I have been, I'm not surprised to see how it's gone, but I did hope that they would figure it out by this point. It feels like they still don't get it.
No, they don't. And there's new polling out there, Democrats plunging in Hispanics, in African Americans. This is a result of crime and inflation. And Adams, you're right. In November, when there's a landslide, people are going to start focusing on him. It was so horrible, the crime under de Blasio. We would take anybody else. Believe it or not, Adams has got crime almost 48% worse than when de Blasio was in. So it's been no matter how much you want to defend the guy, the metrics show it's a disaster now.
Man, I guess at some point it's got to get better, right? We hope. Mr. New York, Good to see you, sir.
Great to see you. Thanks.
Democrats around the country are calling for stricter gun control laws in the wake of the deadly mass shooting in upstate New York. When we come back, former Congressman and Chairman of Liberty Guard Bob Barr will be with us.
Again, it is well past time for outrage and action. Again, it is well past time for Congress to step up and pass real nationwide gun safety legislation. And here in New Jersey, where I am proud of the stands we've made for gun safety, I call again on the legislature to pass our Gun Safety 3.0 package of legislation to not only make it harder for guns to fall into the wrong hands, but just as importantly, to give law enforcement greater tools to protect communities.
Governor Phil Murphy of New Jersey calling for more gun safety laws after America was hit with a weekend of violence across multiple cities. Mass shooting in Buffalo, New York, a shooting outside of Milwaukee's NBA stadium, and multiple people shot in a flea market in Texas. Murphy's comments fit the typical pattern from the left, blaming firearms laws instead of the individuals who commit the crimes. So when is the left going to stop blaming the gun and start looking at the true problems that actually cause these crimes, the individuals behind them? Joining me now to discuss is former member of Congress and chairman at Liberty Guard, Bob Barr. Bob, thanks for being with us.
Thank you very much, Buck. Good to be with you as always.
So just what are the top gun control laws that Democrats want to get passed if they could now? What are the ones that it feels like there's a menu of things they want to do when it comes to Second Amendment restriction? What are the ones that are at the top of their list right now?
I suspect that they're the same that we have seen and heard from ad nauseum for years. They want so-called universal background check, which means that virtually every firearm transfer between individuals has to go through the federal government for approval. They would like to see also an outright ban on so-called assault rifles, such as the very, very popular AR-15 rifle. And they also would like to see a ban on so-called high-capacity magazines, thinking that this also leads to the tragic event and the evil doing that we saw in Buffalo.
Here is California Congressman Mike Thompson, who seems to believe the way to stop gun violence is to get rid of all guns. Watch this one, Bob.
Every day, 170 felons and 50 domestic abusers are stopped from buying a gun at licensed dealers because of the background check. It works. We know it works. There's a lot of evidence out there that suggests or that clarifies the fact that it works. And as far as anybody who says, well, this bill wouldn't have solved this incident, the only thing that will solve every one is to do away with guns.
Well, we don't think that's an option, but what about his comment here about the background checks? And you mentioned universal background checks.
The fact of the matter is that background checks for a generation now have been required for purchases between an individual and a retailer, a federal firearms licensee. That background check at the point of sale, point of transfer goes back to the FBI, and they have a limited 3-day window within which they can then notify the retailer if, in fact, the prospective purchaser falls within one of the many disabling requirements under federal law. They have a felony on their record, they were dishonorably discharged, they have been adjudicated mentally deficient, and so forth. That's been on the books for many years. It does work, but expanding that to include all gun sales would, in fact, pose an unconstitutional impediment on the Second Amendment.
Governor Kathy Hochul of New York is also calling for more gun safety laws. In a statement, she expressed that, quote, "I continue to call on Washington to do just some basic things that we've done here in New York. I also call on the Supreme Court, which is actually considering rolling back some of the protections that were put in place here to protect New York citizens from gun violence." So what is she talking about?
Well, what they're talking about is a complete lack of understanding about the Second Amendment, about firearms, and about individuals that purchase firearms. The fact of the matter is that New York has some of the strictest gun control requirements in the country, along with New Jersey. We just heard from its governor, California, and so forth, and Chicago, as a matter of fact. And yet the fact that these very jurisdictions that have tough, tight gun control are those in which we see significantly more gun violence than in other parts of the country seems to be a fact that escapes them. Yet their tired refrain every time their gun control laws don't stop an evil person doing evil with a gun. Their solution is, oh, we need even more gun control. It never ends.
Congressman Schiff blames the GOP very specifically for violence. He recently tweeted that on Friday there was a mass shooting in Milwaukee. On Saturday there was a mass shooting in Buffalo. Yesterday, mass shootings in Houston and Orange County. This is the new normal made possible by the GOP blocking any action on gun safety. Their cowardice kills. Do they really think that, I mean, is the argument that Democrats in Congress are making, Bob, that if only we had universal background checks and assault rifle bans, that gang violence and other shootings that are occurring day in, day out in America, overwhelmingly with handguns, would stop? It doesn't really seem to add up.
It doesn't add up, and the facts and the history of gun control efforts in this country, whether at the national level, at the local level, or at the state level, bear out the fact that these gun control measures based on the cosmetic features of a firearm, for example, or how many rounds can be contained in a specific magazine, that they don't work. They do not stop gang activity. They do not and cannot ever stop an evil person from either acquiring a firearm or another way to kill people and doing so. This is a deep set cultural issue that we're facing here. And until Democrats join with Republicans in dealing with it as such, we're not going to see any real solutions.
Hillary Clinton, by the way, also weighed in on this one. She tweeted, if Republicans in Congress can issue protections for Supreme Court justices after peaceful protest, they should protect the American people from out-of-control gun violence after 3 mass shootings in 2 days. And this just feels like, I mean, I know she was supposed to be the president in her mind, and she's still very bitter about it. But Bob, it feels like just demagoguery. What is she talking about? Pass legislation to do what exactly?
Who knows with her? On a show that I do, we have Bob Barr's Laws of the Universe, and law number 1 is that the world is full of idiots. What she just said, or what you quoted, certainly qualifies her to be one of our idiots of the week. It makes no sense whatsoever. She's mixing apples and oranges and coming up with a concoction that is absolutely meaningless. And yet, the fact that so many voters will follow politicians like her over the cliff, thinking that they're really doing something when they're not, is really a sad commentary on the Democrat Party.
Bob, appreciate your perspective and expertise. Thanks for being with us today.
My pleasure, Buck. Thank you.
Looks like the CDC isn't finished turning Americans into human pincushions. They're now pushing for a 4th dose of the COVID-19 vaccine. We'll have that story for you in Quick Hits. Stay with us. The CDC calls for a fourth COVID booster, and a creepy video of the CEO of Pfizer is making the rounds. We have those stories and quick hits. Let's get right to it. First up, you may have noticed that these COVID booster shots that they keep telling us to get don't seem to stop the COVID virus from spreading, which is interesting. It's the first vaccine I can think of that doesn't actually stop people from getting it in any significant numbers whatsoever. And then beyond that, it seems increasingly ineffective after just a few months to even stop hospitalization and death for those who get it. That's what the data is actually telling people. Despite that, oh gosh, what a surprise, the CDC is still pushing for more. They're calling for older adults to get the fourth COVID booster dose, despite a lot of experts saying, what are we doing here? Like, what is the point of this exactly? Why are you telling older Americans that they should get their fourth COVID shot? This is now, it's not even what we see if you think about it with the flu, which tends to be a shot a year. This is now on track for, it's been 2 years, 4 shots. This is 2 shots a year. Most people couldn't even get that shot for the first 4 or 5 months of 2021. So we're on track here for what, 3 shots a year, 4 shots a year? This is insane. CDC doesn't care. Do they even look at the data? No. Does it matter that the stuff doesn't work? No, they don't care. Shut up, take the shot. These people are horrendous. But what you're watching is the self-immolation of whatever credibility the public health apparatus in America has in real time. That's what's actually going on here. So speaking of the health experts out there, this was just a sense of, because right now the World Health Organization is getting a lot of attention. People are worried about global health governance and restrictions on speech in America that could come from the international health community deciding what's allowed to be said and what's not. Just a reminder of who you're dealing with some of these health officials and big pharma CEOs. This is a flashback to 2018. The Pfizer CEO, Albert Bourla, was promoting pills that send a wireless signal to notify, whomever, authorities, I guess, of compliance in taking the pill. Watch.
It is basically biological chip that it is in the tablet. And once you take the tablet and dissolves into your stomach, sends a signal that you took the tablet. So imagine the applications of that, compliance. The insurance companies to know that the medicines that patients should take, they do take them. It is fascinating what happens in this field.
Forget about having Big Brother watch you. Apparently you can ingest Big Brother and they can watch you from the inside out. It's pretty freaky when you think about it, pretty crazy. Congresswoman Rosa DeLauro says the FDA, just to be clear, because we'll take a step back for a second here. The baby formula shortage is an appalling failure on the part of the FDA, on the part of the Biden administration, on the part of the Abbott lab that was shut down by the FDA to get back online and figure out what's going on here. Even some Democrats are recognizing this because it's so obvious at this point. It's so unavoidable a conclusion to draw. Congresswoman Rosa DeLauro says the FDA didn't do enough to prevent the baby formula shortage. Watch.
The FDA dragged its feet. They knew in September, they knew in October through a whistleblower's report that there were serious infractions. They didn't interview the whistleblower until December. They went back in January and they found contamination, and the recall only occurred in February, and that was 4 months. Why 4 months? There's got to be answers to that question from the FDA.
She's right. Why did it take so long? Why was nobody paying attention? Why was there not more of an effort to get ahead of this? Because you have really anxious, understandably, really frightened parents who desperately need formula. And some babies have certain dietary restrictions. They can only have certain kinds of formula. There's a 40% shortage on the shelves of formula in a lot of states right now. It's a huge problem. And where was the Biden administration on this one? Oh, giving us lectures about how we need to send more money to Ukraine? Really? Yeah, apparently. Here's a pro-life mom, by the way, who demolishes a pro-abortion Democrat congressman on live TV in under 10 seconds. Watch.
Is candidly and openly calling for a nationwide ban on all abortions with no exceptions for rape or incest. And if I've got that wrong, I would invite Ms. Foster to correct me. Do I have it wrong, yes or no?
If we added rape and incest exceptions, would you vote for it?
Okay, I reclaim my time, of course.
She has a point, doesn't she? That's it for tonight's Hold the Line. The No Spin News with Bill O'Reilly is up next. Shields high.